All right. Welcome to Cozy's Corner. As this is my first video, I thought it would be apt to tell you what the main goal of this channel is. Firstly, my main goal is to foster a place where community can happen. I'm gonna link a Discord channel below as kind of a community hub where everyone is welcome. That's somewhere that I would really encourage civil discourse to happen, even with a difference of opinion. That's somewhere where I would like people to be able to discuss the topics that we cover on this show civilly, even if you don't agree with someone else's opinion. Secondly, I want to look at all things that people may consider strange or mysterious or even flat out conspiratorial. Not much here is off limits. And I want to research any ideas that people may have, no matter how crazy they may be on the surface. Third and lastly, I want to be the voice of the community. I want people to be able to say that, this is something that we want you to cover. We want you to research it. We want you to do a deep dive on it. I want the community to be able to vote on those kind of things and be a autonomous community in which I'm just a member. If I end up using an idea, I want to be able to give a shout out people that ended up making a really awesome idea and creating a video. Now on to my normal intro. Welcome to Cozy's Corner, our corner of the internet for all things strange, conspiratorial, or mysterious. Nothing is off limits here, so grab your coffee, get nice and cozy, and let's dive in. Alright, so today I wanted to cover something that's really been bothering me. And it's something that's been bothering me for so many reasons because of everything that's involved. I wanted to cover the life and death of Giuffre Epstein. I wanted to cover the scandals, those that have been involved, and continual ramifications that we see happening in society all around us. I know this has been completely played out. I get it. There's always been something that's bothered me, though, about the videos that talk about him. A lot of them are very conspiratorial in surrounding his death rather than the awful things that he and his associates did during his life. They don't really go into detail on who this man was. They don't go into detail on what this man did. People get so caught up in the Giuffre Epstein didn't kill himself that they forget kind of how much of a monster he was and only look at the memes surrounding him rather than the facts of who he was. So today I want to reiterate what the facts are, who this man was in the past, where he came from, and I want to shed light on the horrible situation that is still ongoing to this day. Before moving forward, I wanted to remind everyone that if you enjoy this deep dive content, so please remember to like the video because it helps a lot with YouTube's algorithm and recommending it to other people who may find it interesting. Comment on what you liked about it, comment what you disliked about it. Again, this is my first video. All criticism is welcome. If you loved it, please consider subscribing because I want to do these weekly. But back to the story. I think it's imperative that we start at the beginning with this. I want to go through chronologically from his birth all the way to his death. I want to look at some of the more well-known co-conspirators that we have. And I want to reiterate as much as I can the life and death of this sick and twisted individual. I know that I'll miss things because I want to keep this video to a certain length, but if I missed anything that you think was super important, please let me know either in the comments below or on the Discord channel, and I'll be more than happy to create an amend in the description or possibly in a future update video. To start at the literal beginning, Epstein was born on January 20th, 1953. He was born to his parents Pauline and Seymour Epstein. He was not born into money. His father was a groundskeeper in New York City, and his mother was a teacher's aide. Giuffre was the older of the couple's two children, his brother being named Mark. His brother, in my research, doesn't appear to be someone really of note. They did own real estate together. One of the buildings that they happened to own together happened to be 301 East 66th Street, where sex slaves were housed in Manhattan, but that's something that we'll discuss more later on. Giuffre's early life has many things of note. He was a really brilliant child by all accounts. He could fluently play piano by the age of 5. At age 14, in 1967, he attended the Interlochen Center for the Arts, which was and still is, a prestigious school focusing on the creative studies, including music, which Giuffre Epstein was obviously a part of. He later had his own private lodge there, dubbed the Giuffre Epstein Scholarship Lodge, in a camp for kids. Later, within this lodge, many accusations were made of him trying to groom children, sometimes as young as 13. Only 2 years after his study at the Center for Arts, he had graduated high school at Lafayette High School. He was 16 at the time. Epstein had skipped 2 whole grades. He truly was a brilliant mind, and unfortunately, as we will later discuss, it was a brilliant mind that he used for evil. Epstein wasted no time in heading off to college after high school. Started out at Cooper Union. 2 years later, in 1971, he transferred to the Courant Institute of Mathematical Studies, which is located inside of New York University. He studied at the university until June of '74, although he never earned a degree. Just 3 months later, in September of the same year, he would take up a job with the prestigious Dalton School, located in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. It was reported by the Daily Beast that Epstein had in fact faked his resume in order to get into Dalton School with his teaching job. That would explain how he was able to get into such a prestigious school without having a degree. Oh, and he was also potentially hired by Donald Barr. That's the father of the current Attorney General, Bill Barr. This is a little bit of a gray area, though. Barr resigned as the headmaster of the school as Epstein was being onboarded, so it's not clear if he was hired by him. In regards to his short-lived career at Dalton, Epstein is quoted to have been unusual and unsettling, especially in his dealings with the female students. The New York Times cites multiple extremely uncomfortable encounters, but noteworthy to say is that there are none I have found that can confirm unwelcome physical contact, something that cannot be said for later encounters. He would show up to school parties hosted by the children, high school parties, the kind where children are getting drunk and having fun, and there shouldn't be a mid-20s something weird high school teacher there. Those kind of parties. He also is reported to have had, later in his career at Dalton, some extremely uncomfortable relations with some of the students, in particular the female students at the school. These concerns were brought up to the administration, and Epstein had been primed for firing or dismissal from Dalton School. Unfortunately, though, during his tenure, he had made some pretty important ties within the financial industry. Some important connections that would really propel him from where he was now to what he would later become. While at Dalton, Epstein taught 2 children of importance that would propel him to his prowess within the financial industry. These 2 students were the son of Alan Greenberg, who at the time was the CEO of Bear Stearns. It was a banking company that folded during the 2008 financial collapse. Greenberg was, by all accounts, extremely impressed with Epstein's analytical mind. So impressed, in fact, that he offered him a position within Bear Stearns. Epstein had proved himself from the very beginning that this was his show. He started out as a lowly floor trader. He quickly became an options trader and rising all the way up through the ranks within the company. He later would be working in their, quote, special products division, and then later on even landing in assisting Bear Stearns' wealthiest clients. All this happened in the span of only 4 years, from 1976 to 1980. He became one of the most senior non-executives in the company. Unfortunately for him, in 1981, he was asked to step down from the company, having committed a violation of SEC Regulation D. I'm no expert in this. I wouldn't even attempt to explain it. I have no idea what this violation is. I've linked a wiki page down below in the description. If you want to continue reading on the subject, you are more than welcome, but I won't dive further into that during this video. What is important, however, to note is that this was an illegal and extremely shady activity Epstein was employing. And I can say that this was not his first nor his last, truly foreshadowing the events to come. It is noteworthy that Epstein, although gone from the company, was still friends with the incumbent CEO, Jimmy Kane, CEO after Greenberg's retirement. He also did keep up the relationship that he had with Greenberg. In fact, Epstein still had holdings with Bear Stearns all the way up until 2008 when, as stated, they closed during the financial collapse. One thing that I wanted to note is that during my research, I cannot find anything that would indicate Epstein had started his trafficking activities during his time within Bear Stearns, between that time of 1976 to 1980. So I'm not sure when exactly these started. I can't really find a good point to pin it, but I would think that it would have started pretty soon after, in the early to mid 1980s. One thing that I can tell you, though, is for certain. Epstein had created many deep ties within many wealthy families all across the world. It's truly frightening because we will never truly know the extent of this man's deep political and social ties, nor will we truly understand the breadth of this man's horrible acts. And unfortunately, as we'll soon find out, this firing in 1981 was not an obstacle to Epstein. In fact, this is where we start to see the horrors that this man is responsible for start to take place. After his short stint with Bear Stearns, he opened shop at his own asset trading group called the Intercontinental Asset Group, IAG for short from now on. He registered this business as straight out of his apartment on East 66th Street in Manhattan. One thing that's unclear to me is why did he found IAG out of his apartment? There are no records of this business ever having an address that was outside of one of his homesteads. I can't find any explanation that is concrete, though, to interject my own thoughts on this. I think that there are two possible explanations, but there certainly are a lot more. The first of which is the clientele that he sought after were already his friends, already people that he knew within Bear Stearns, which totally makes sense. The second one, a little bit more frightening, would be the clientele that he was trying to gather was his cohorts within the trafficking ring, or people that were clientele. Again, this is completely speculation on my end. I don't know one way or the other. I would lean more towards the first, but again, I don't know. Later on in 1986 or 1987, he founded J. Epstein & Co., another firm based on money management. This one was stated to have a very exclusive clientele, billionaires. Leslie Wexner, chairman and CEO of L Brands, they're responsible for Victoria's Secret as well as a few other fashion brands. Steve Jude Hoffenberg, who ran Tower Financial Corp. There are many others, but those are two of note, people that had deep ties to Epstein. Later on, he would change the name of this company to Financial Trust Company. This one and another we'll later discuss are the most worrisome to me. Originally headquartered in New York City, he moved this to his private island in the US Virgin Islands later on. His island and The evil that was carried out there is something that we will discuss a little later on in the video. To continue to set the groundwork for the holding Epstein had, in 1993, he set up another money management firm, this one called Financial Strategy Inc. This one was based out of his Palm Beach home, a place now infamous for reasons I'm sure that you're aware, and something that we'll dive into a little bit later as well. Now that we have the background information on who this man was, we can deep dive into what he is within this context. This man, at the very minimum, was on the high end of millionaire, low end of billionaire, had the potential to be worth much more than just a single billion. This is a man who had very wealthy influences and ties as well as political. This is a man who is speculated to have been fired from his teaching job for inappropriate relations with his students, notably female students. Let's look at the allegations and the strange events that will follow. So to stay in chronological order, I wanted to look at the criminal and civil cases that were levied against Epstein. I wanted to look at those who are tied to him, as well as some of the conspiratorial allegations that have made against Epstein, including the popular Epstein didn't kill himself. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Starting with the first legal case that was levied against Epstein, this one, in my opinion, is the most infamous for reasons that we'll soon see. In March of 2005, a mother had gotten some very disturbing information from her teenage stepdaughter, and she had contacted the Palm Beach Police Department about this. The girl, only 14 and attending Royal Palm Beach High School, had told a friend originally that she had sex with a man for money. A middle-aged man. A man who lived at the end of a dead-end street in a large mansion. A man named Jeff. It's alleged that she was paid $300 to strip naked in front of Epstein and massage him while she was naked. Not only is this absolutely abhorrent, it's also unfortunately only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this man. A 13-month undercover investigation into Epstein had begun after this, and it concluded in searching his home. The FBI actually also had become involved in this process at some point. The research into Epstein's ongoing activity at this Palm Beach location was nicknamed Operation Leap Year. Soon, this led detectives to 358 El Brillo Way, which was the mansion that Epstein had owned at the end of the road. The same one that the unnamed 14-year-old girl had alleged she was brought to. There were interviews done with 5 other victims, and double-digit witnesses had testified under oath about these horrible events that had taken place here. In searching Epstein's home, the police found evidence linking underage girls between the ages of 14 and 17 to being in his home. The police also found an extremely large number of photos of underage girls throughout the house. Those pictures were of match to the 5 that were interviewed earlier by police, as well as many more unnamed victims. Continuing with this investigation, the FBI compiled a list of 34 minors who were confirmed to have been abused by this monster. And there are said to be around 80 total victims, as reported by the Miami Herald. In 2006, May, Palm Beach police had probable cause, and Epstein was charged. Epstein had multiple defense lawyers for this case, including a Harvard Law School professor, Alan Dershowitz, and a former United States Solicitor General, Ken Starr. In regards to some of the other details on this case, let's go over them, and then we can move on to what I think might be the scariest detail here. Separate to the investigation that was being done by the Palm Beach police, we have the aforementioned FBI investigation. This investigation resulted in the indictment of Epstein in June of 2007 on federal crimes. This indictment allegedly showed additional proof of abuse committed by this man. The U.S. Attorney General that was responsible for the Southern District of Florida at the time, Alexander Acosta, worked with Alan Dershowitz on a plea deal. Now, that name might sound familiar, and that would be because Acosta was the Secretary of Labor for Trump from April of 2017 to July of 2019. And as a side note, to attempt to keep politics out of this, but still explore the true nature of the extent of the ties that Epstein had, just know that Trump, as well as other presidents, will come up later in this video, although I am not attempting to make a political stance in any way, shape, or form. Here, to me, is the scariest part about this case. The fact that there was a non-persecution agreement against these crimes. The deal worked out with Acosta was literally the most lenient deal I have ever heard of in any case. Epstein was granted federal immunity from all of these criminal charges. It also granted immunity for 4 named co-conspirators, as well as any unnamed potential co-conspirators. Not only was Epstein not facing the consequences for the actions that he had committed, neither was anyone that was around him and also responsible. They were all just going to stay in the dark forever. Just some rich pedophiles who were granted full federal immunity for all their evil deeds. Yeah. This completely halted the investigation and sealed it shut on the FBI side. Acosta had later been quoted as saying something that I found extremely chilling. He was later quoted as saying he was told to offer a lenient deal to Epstein, as Epstein was both above his pay grade and belonging to intelligence. He was also told for his own sake to leave it alone. Thankfully, it was found by a federal court judge that the prosecutors violated the victims' rights by concealing the agreement from the victims. Now on to another strange bit, his actual time in prison. Epstein had a very peculiar time in prison, totaling just 18 months. I honestly, though, don't think that you could really call what Epstein was in prison. Epstein had his own private wing in the Palm Beach County Stockade instead of being housed with the other prisoners. Not only that, 3 months into his sentence, Epstein had been allowed to leave the cell and leave his private blockade for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week on work release. This man was essentially free only 3 months into his stay. This specific prison, though, had a ban on sex offender eligibility for this work release privilege that Epstein was on. Epstein was apparently the exception to the rule, and that's something that we're going to see time and time again. During his stay, Epstein's cell door was completely unlocked. The sheriff's office of the county Epstein resided in received $130,000 from Epstein's nonprofit prior to him going there to remodel the wing that Epstein was being housed in. He was monitored by what was called permit deputies, and these guys were paid by Epstein. He was even allowed guests to be checked in to the jail to visit him and to conduct business. Unfortunately, the end of his jail sentence would not be the end of the special treatment that Epstein had been given. After his time in jail, Epstein was placed on house arrest. While on house arrest, he again had every rule broken for him. He was allowed multiple trips on private jets to Manhattan and his private island. He could walk around Palm Beach for exercise. Later, Epstein, once off house arrest, was to have another hearing for his sex offender registration in New York City. During this, he was supposed to have what's called a level 3 designation levied upon him, meaning he was at high risk to be a repeat offender. The district attorney at the time, Cyrus Vance Jr., tried arguing that he should be classified as a level 1 offender. That would be someone who's at low risk for repeating offenses. He did this, thankfully, unsuccessfully, but unfortunately, it really wouldn't matter. Because of this level 3 designation, Epstein was supposed to be required to check in with the Manhattan Police Department every 90 days. I say supposed to because this is something, again, we see he didn't have to comply with. It wasn't even enforced, with records showing Epstein almost never checked in. There have also been a multitude of civil cases levied against Epstein, and unfortunately, I can't go through all of them. It would make this video hours and hours long. What I will do, though, is I'll name off some of the more prominent ones, and if you guys want me to do a video on these civil cases, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll consider doing that. The most prominent that we see are Jane Doe's versus United States in 2014, Virginia Roberts versus Epstein in 2015, and Virginia Roberts versus Ghislaine Maxwell in 2015, and lastly, Sarah Ransom versus Epstein and Maxwell in 2017. Now on to some of the more recent events and the ones that we are most familiar with. July 6th, 2019. Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. As a shock to everyone, I'm sure, Epstein was again charged with trafficking. This time, though, Epstein would be housed in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City. Here is where Epstein was found injured in his cell. Here is where he later would be found dead of an alleged suicide. At this facility, they were able to safeguard as well as keep from escaping the likes of El Chapo. Epstein was found dead. There are 2 incidents that happened at this prison. The first was on July 23rd. Epstein was found injured and, quote, semi-conscious at 1:30 a.m. Epstein had marks around his neck that were suspected to either be from a suicide attempt or an assault. Epstein's cellmate at the time was a former New York City police officer, Nicholas Tartaglione, who had been charged with 4 counts of murder. Look at a picture of this guy, seriously. It is definitely quite possible that Epstein was a victim of an assault. I mean, that's a big dude. Epstein, in speaking to his lawyers, state that he was actually assaulted by Nicholas. Nicholas, on the other hand, had denied harming Epstein, and in fact, Nicholas had said that he had saved Epstein. I'm sure that he means saved him from a suicide attempt. Either way, as a result of this, we find Epstein on suicide watch. Epstein was placed into an observation cell in an area where any devices or items that could be used to harm someone or take their own life would be taken, confiscated, and not permitted inside. 6 days later, he was moved out of this suicide watch. He was moved to a different special housing unit, one where he was supposed to both have a cellmate and regularly be checked upon in 30-minute intervals. Oddly, on August 8th of 2019, 2 days before Epstein's alleged suicide, he signed a will that gifted all of his assets, literally everything, to a trust named the 1953 Trust. August 9th, Epstein's cellmate was transferred out, and no cellmate was scheduled to replace them. 7:49 p.m. An allegedly upbeat Epstein is escorted back to his cell by prison guard Tova Noel. Guards failed to perform the 30-minute check walkthrough at 10 p.m. Evidence shows the same guard, Noel, did do a brief check on Epstein at 10:30 p.m., however. This was the last time that Epstein's cell was checked throughout that night. Both guards, the aforementioned Tova Noel and another guard, Michael Thomas, were asleep at their desk. They falsified records stating the opposite. Cameras in front of Epstein's cell had malfunctioned. The other cameras were found to be unusable in their footage. Epstein's lifeless body would be found at 6:30 a.m. during the breakfast run. Epstein was found kneeling with a strip of bedsheet around his neck. Strangely, no photos of Epstein's body were taken of him within his cell. Even stranger, in another breach of protocol, his body would be rushed to the hospital. This was to be treated as a crime scene, and doing something like that would be tampering with the evidence that was present at the time. Another strange thing about this is that he used breakaway sheets for his suicide. An inmate described these same sheets that this 200-pound man had used to hang himself as paper thin and definitely not strong enough. It's also odd that while not allowed anything that could be used in strangulation, Epstein had a sleep apnea machine while he was in the cell. A machine that uses wires and tubing. These wires and that tubing are 100% stronger than the sheets that Epstein allegedly hung himself with. Last thing of note at his cell was a note. This note that was found in Epstein's cell described bugs crawling all over his body, burnt food, guards intentionally locking him in the shower for hours, and it was also written in a ballpoint pen. And that's not something that prisoners would really have access to normally, especially ones that would be a suicide risk. From there, as we all know, Epstein's death was ruled a suicide. The strange thing about this event is that it's reported that screaming had been heard within his cell that night. His old cellmate, Nicholas, attempted to tell police of some strange events that he had noticed during the night in regards to Epstein's cell. He was allegedly told that for his own sake, he needed to keep quiet. Lastly, the broken bones in Epstein's neck. These are the bones that are associated with strangulation rather than suicide, and these are the ones that were found broken within Epstein's neck. These included the left and right larynx, as well as the hyoid bone. It was stated by investigators going over thousands and thousands of jail hangings and suicides over the past 40 to 50 years that no one had all three of these fractures at once in any suicide attempt. Only Epstein. Now I want to interject my opinion into this. I don't think in any way, shape, or form that this was a suicide. I think there are two likely scenarios that would have taken place here. Either one, Epstein was murdered, or two, a body double was used in his place, and Epstein is still alive. Something of note, despite his brother Mark's protest, there has been no use of DNA evidence to link the body that was found to that of Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think Epstein died of a suicide, but I also don't think that Epstein was the ringleader of this operation. I think Epstein, although a horrible human being and a monster, verifiably so, I think that he was just a sacrificial lamb so that these operations of evil could continue to be done. If you want to hear more about what I have to say on that, and the theory I have on who the ringleader of this operation actually is, please consider dropping a like on the video to spread the video and leave a comment below, and I'll consider doing that in the future. The two things I want to cover next are Epstein's private island and a few of the famous individuals that have involvement with him. Firstly, his island. Little St. James Island. Pedo Island. Orgy Island, no matter what you want to call it, it's Epstein's personal private island. A place designed for the rich and famous to conduct their abuse in secret. In other words, a private slice of hell. Flight records involving Epstein's two private jets show that between the very early months of 2018 all the way up to late 2019 show that these two jets were airborne once every 3 days. These flights were not discriminatory. He would stop everywhere you could possibly think of. London, Mexico, Paris, New York, Palm Beach, everywhere, all leading back to his island. One anonymous air traffic controller stated that on multiple occasions he saw Epstein exiting his helicopter and boarding his private jet with children. He later on stated one incident in particular really stood out in his mind. The girls were just so young. They couldn't have been more than 16 years of age. Epstein would make the trip out to his private island at least once a month, sometimes twice or even more. Epstein's island later was raided by the FBI. The island had 5 buildings: a villa-style compound, a library, a movie theater, a bathhouse that was separate from the villa, and cabanas. Pictures of these 5 buildings are shown on screen. Oh, actually, there was a 6th building, a temple as it's been described. It's pictured now. One of the most alarming things to me about this temple that you can see from the picture is the locking bar that's on the outside, meaning it was likely meant to keep people in rather than keeping people out of the building. This island is where the majority of his trafficking activity allegedly happened. He would fly these girls to St. Thomas and then ferry them over on his island from a boat named Lady Giuffre. Creepy. There are notable events here that take place that involve his earlier stated lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, and the above-mentioned case, Ransom versus Epstein. Sarah Ransom had alleged Epstein attempted to force her to have sex with Dershowitz. Dershowitz has, of course, denied this. What I want to focus on next is the famous individuals who have been involved with Epstein. First, I want to look at the current president of the United States, Donald Trump. Again, I'm not taking political stances in this video. I just want to get that out of the way before we move on to talking about this. Anyway, we have pictures of the current president and Melania with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell together. This photo was taken in the year 2000. In 2002, Trump stated, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." He said this to New York Magazine. When the news came out about Epstein, Kellyanne Conway stated Trump believed he was obviously criminal and disgusting. Conway also stated that Trump advised he had not talked to nor seen Epstein in 10 to 15 years. One last thing to note, Trump hired Epstein's lawyer from his original civil case in regards to the now former impeachment hearings. He hired Alan Dershowitz and Ken Starr. I'm honestly not sure if there's any connection there. Dershowitz has assisted many high-profile celebrities, but I still think that it's a strained connection nonetheless. Secondly, I want to talk about former United States President Bill Clinton. Clinton is significantly more prolific, to say the least. Clinton is believed to have flown upon Epstein's private jet that has been dubbed the Lolita Express more than 15 times. He is believed to have flown to Epstein's private island as well. There's also, on the other hand, though, no definitive proof that Clinton had known about Epstein's evil deeds, nor is there definitive proof that he actually had visited the island. I sincerely doubt that was the case, though, after flying with him for 15 or more times. There was even a humanitarian relief trip done to Africa in 2002 that involved Clinton and Epstein. There were many other high-profile members of society involved in this trip as well. Not much really, though, is known about this trip. What is known are the individuals who were involved via pictures of the event. One of the individuals pictured at this event was one of Epstein's rape accusers, Shantae Davis. Davis and Clinton are seen in this picture shown posing together. At the end of the day, I do think that this raises huge suspicions on the actual breadth of who is involved, not only in this specific incident, but also as a whole. Thirdly, I want to briefly go over Prince Andrew. Currently, he's ducking and diving around the allegations after a really strange interview where he is nothing but full of contradictions. I would highly advise at least watching highlights of this, because there's nothing that I can really say that'll do it justice. The biggest highlight I think of this video, though, is the picture. The picture that's currently shown on screen. The picture of Prince Andrew and Prince Andrew's accuser, Virginia Roberts. And take a look at who's in the background here. None other than Epstein's mistress, Ghislaine Maxwell. Prince Andrew is also currently dodging the FBI's requests for additional information in regards to his alleged ties with Epstein. Something more will most likely come out of this situation in months and years to come. Lastly, I want to look at one of the more recent events that had happened in regards to Jeffrey Epstein, and that would be at the Golden Globes with Ricky Gervais. The Golden Globes speech and the transcript of it are as follows. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer, and it's still more fun than this. Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't kill himself. Just like Giuffre Epstein. Shut up, I know he's your friend, but I don't care. What concerns me the most is the last line, I know he's your friend, but I don't care. I want to leave you with that quote. I know he's your friend, but I don't care. How deep is this? How many people are involved with Epstein? We only took on 3 of the most high profile and relevant cases in regards to Giuffre Epstein, but I could do a whole nother hour in Cozy's Corner about some of the other high profile members of society that have been linked to Giuffre Epstein, and there's a huge list of people that are out there. I think what's scarier though are people that are not on this list. The people that are not in the public spotlight. There are so many questions that we will never have answers to. Was Giuffre Epstein truly used as an asset in order to somehow facilitate blackmail maybe? Was his plea deal given as some form of leverage used in some form of blackmail? What truly is the scope of people that are involved in this? As Ricky Gervais has stated, I know he's your friend, but I don't care. And with that, good night, friends. Alright, everyone, so some footnotes that I wanted to get to after the video is over. I wanted to get to these without interrupting the video because I believe that you really shouldn't interrupt a video with things like this. So I wanted to put it here at the end. First off, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see future content coming out. I've got a lot of cool things planned and a lot of deep dives planned that I think that you would find interesting if you found this interesting. Again, my goal is to upload at least once a week for the near future. I want to go over subjects that you guys find interesting, so that's why, again, I wanted to discuss the Discord channel, which will be linked below in the video description. I created this Discord channel for discussions on any of the topics that we cover on this channel, as well as any topics that you may want me to cover. Again, I want this to be a channel focused around the community. That's my goal, is to foster a sense of community, to create something in which we can openly discuss things that may not be able to be openly discussed in the public, something that, we may be mocked for discussing in the public. So if there's anything that you guys want me to discuss, please put it in that Discord channel and we will vote on it in the future to have it as a topic featured on one of our videos. And again, if we do cover something that you guys suggest, we'll shout you out, and there's even a special rank in the Discord server for you. So anyway, again, thanks for watching the video, everyone. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. I spent the last week or so researching all the information that I've presented in here, and again, I do know that I have missed things. I did omit some things in order to keep this video under a certain length. So if there's anything I missed, please let me know either in the Discord channel or in the comments below, and I will be more than happy to make an addendum potentially in the future on this video. Anyway, that's it. Again, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, and good night.